Corsair Cove is a game that feels like it was assembled specifically to get my attention. Hooded Horse are one of my favourite publishers right now. I've had a particular weakness for anything involving pirates for some time, and I've been watching Black Sails recently, so I'm all in. The pitch here is essentially Tropico meets the Age of Piracy. You're building a ramshackle settlement across a tropical island, you're managing production chains, and basically keeping your unruly population supplied, while sending ships out to explore, plunder, and just cause problems for anyone flying the wrong flag. Welcome to LT Gaming, my name is Tom and this is our Should You Buy series where we weigh up the good, the bad and ultimately answer whether a game is worth parting with your hard-earned cash for. This video isn't sponsored and all opinions are entirely our own. So after about 15 hours with the full 1.0 version, I'm ready to unpack this for you guys, so let's jump straight into it. The problem facing Corsair Cove is the same one facing almost every modern city builder. How are you going to make it feel genuinely a bit different? Unique settings are quite common now across this genre. Medieval villages, frozen colonies, cities on distant planets. Devs are exploring different settings for city building. Yet once the novelty wears off, many of them boil down to familiar routines of gathering resources, production chains, optimizing worker movement, and just watching everything rise up. And Corsair Cove is recognisable in that regard, and the campaign does introduce these systems naturally. You have a motley crew of fleeing pirates searching for somewhere to settle and basically regroup, and then you have to fulfill the needs of those pirates, and your tech compass kind of acts as your research tree, gradually unlocking new features, buildings and so on. When you combine all of this with its lush visuals and I would say largely untouched pirate setting, the game has a strong identity. The foundations are distinctive and the setting carries a lot of charm, but the question for me is there enough variety and long-term progression to keep this central loop interesting? And to answer that, I'm going to start with what Corsair Cove gets right. The first thing Corsair Cove absolutely nails is its presentation. It looks and sounds fantastic, and playing it often felt like my eyeballs had been sent on a tropical holiday. I loved it. The island is lush, colourful, full of movement. Buildings stack naturally into the terrain, pirates bustle around the place, and your ramshackle refuge becomes a settlement that feels distinctly yours. I also encountered no performance issues across my 15 hours, so this allows the presentation to really shine. Corsair Cove is properly understanding its setting, the ships, the music, the characters. It all works together to give you this idea of a pirate haven. And the campaign introduces the mechanics very well. It balances relaxed building with enough pressure and direction to keep you moving forward. Now, where the game becomes more than just a pirate city builder is in its vertical construction. And this goes well beyond just placing a few ladders against a cliff and calling it innovation. As your settlement expands, you create a network of ladders, cliff walks, bridges, zip lines, connecting all the different levels of your island. And these routes directly affect how efficient pirates are at carrying their resources around. So initially a ladder might cut it, but eventually you're going to upgrade to an elevator to transport goods more effectively. And I was also reasonably impressed with the amount of production depth. More goods and increasingly involved supply chains appear as you progress through the tech compass. So there is some mechanical meat to the economy. Now the compass and deed system give you some short-term objectives and direction. I quite like it, and it encourages you to experiment with different systems. The wider world is another hook. Sending your mateys out to explore, complete quests and indulge in some entirely respectable plundering breaks up the settlement management and extends the pirate fantasy beyond the island to what pirates actually do. Now Corsair Cove isn't the most complex city builder available, but that's not necessarily a criticism. Anyone who's donated a part of their mortal lifespan to workers and resources, for example, will understand complexity is rewarding, but it can also become a second occupation. Corsair Cove is far easier to settle into. Its production chains and logistics give you something to consider while still keeping the pace moving through everything quite comfortably. I think the best compliment I can give it is that after about 8 hours, I still wanted to keep playing. I wasn't pushing forward simply because I had a review that needs finishing. I genuinely wanted to develop my settlement and see what came next. And for a city builder, that is a strong signal. Now, a quick shout out before we continue that many of you watching aren't subscribed. If you enjoy good gaming content, feel free to give the video a like and consider subscribing. It helps us grow the channel on our way to 100k, and we want to keep you up to date with all things gaming. Now, coming on to the not so good side of things, I think the greatest weakness with this game is variety, or lack of it once that initial charm wears off. My favourite city builders tend to have strong campaigns. Pharaoh remains memorable to me because its campaign carries you across thousands of years, from minor settlements to enormous cities and pyramids. New maps bring different terrains, resources and pressures, and it creates a sense of progression and challenge. Corsair Cove doesn't offer that same journey. There are 3 maps available. Yes, you heard that right, 3. And the campaign keeps you on the one, which is Skull Island. Now, it's a well-designed location and a strong showcase for the mechanics of the game. But after 15 hours, I was thoroughly ready to see somewhere else. Frankly, I developed a case of island fever. There is a sandbox mode as well, and that's for the players who enjoy building without so much direction. Personally, I prefer having a campaign's objectives in a sense of purpose. Without that structure, the limited map variety becomes more noticeable to me. And I did praise the logistical mechanics, and they do remain good. But the problem is maintaining that network as your settlement grows. Early ladders may need replacing with elevators, and older pathways become inefficient as production expands. For me, manually finding and replacing these connections became cumbersome and fiddly to the point I just didn't bother. Optimizing logistics is satisfying, but eventually it becomes more like unpaid municipal maintenance. I also found the pirates maybe too easy to manage as well. In Pharaoh, I could look away briefly and discover that my palatial estates had collapsed back into shacks because the water carrier hadn't bloody visited. It was infuriating, yes, but it made logistics feel consequential. I found Corsair Cove rarely applied that same pressure. Maybe I'm amazing at games, but I don't think so. So it just feels like mistakes don't carry that much weight. I also wasn't really taken with the encounters and battle system. It has a card-based system that should create tactical possibilities, but fights boil down to basically dealing the maximum damage and reducing the enemy to 0, and there wasn't really much subtlety or nuance with it. There are varied cards, enemies and objectives, but I feel this could be improved considerably. Ultimately though, the limited flavour and variety is Corsair Cove's Achilles heel, and this analogy feels appropriate as the Odyssey is currently lodged firmly in my head. The vertical logistics, pirate setting and presentation give it a strong identity, but what it lacks is a broader campaign taking you across different islands with fresh challenges and let you apply what you've learned to new settlements. The foundations are good, but I just wanted a much larger ocean to splash around in. So, should you buy Corsair Cove? It is a good city builder, there are no two ways about it. It gives you a different take on the genre and has surprisingly involved production chains, flexible logistical networks, and some of the most distinctive vertical building mechanics I've ever seen. It looks and sounds fantastic. It commits to the pirate fantasy, from the ramshackle cliffside settlement to sending your crew out into the wider world. But the problem I had is that after about 6 to 8 hours or so, I contracted a fairly serious case of island fever. I wanted more locations, more variety, and most importantly a fresh map where I could take everything I'd learned and begin again and apply those lessons. Now, as of recording, I haven't seen a launch price announced, which makes the value slightly harder to judge. But I would say for players looking for a colourful, swashbuckling city builder with some quest-driven progression, this one is a buy. The core mechanics work, the production chains offer enough depth, and managing the settlement across cliffs, walkways and elevators does give you something distinctive. Now, if my concerns I raised about flavour and variety resonate with you, then this is a wait. Despite it launching in a 1.0 version, Corsair Cove would benefit enormously from additional islands, campaign missions, and maybe a few quality of life fixes for logistical routes, for example. Finally, if you dislike the persistent island structure or need a campaign filled with substantially different maps and scenarios, I'm going to put this one in the avoid for you. Its setting and vertical construction won't entirely disguise that repetitious nature. So there we have it, a fun pirate adventure. I just wish I had a few more shores to conquer, and that's enough pirate related puns for one video. Let me know in the comments what your questions are, what your thoughts are, and if you're going to buy this game. Thanks for watching everyone, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye now.